Hi everyone. So I thought I'd make a video about this idea I've been thinking about. This very old idea called love your enemy. Now, a lot of people disagree with me about having this idea, but I personally think that this is the most healthy attitude to have towards other people and the most productive route for meaningful conversations with people without everyone getting pissed off, so we can actually figure out problems in a more easy way. So, and maybe it's an exaggeration a little bit to literally say love your enemy. I don't necessarily mean like go to, I don't know, go to, if Hitler were alive, go up to Hitler and be like, oh, I love you. You're so awesome for murdering all those Jews and all that shit. No, I don't mean that at all. I mean, like, in today's modern world, if you really don't like someone because of their ideas, especially because of their ideas rather than their conduct, then I think it's a much better idea to do another way that people put this idea of loving your enemy, the principle of charity, or assuming that people have good faith. And I think it's interesting because this idea of loving your enemy is a common religious idea. Like Jesus kind of argues that with, turn the other cheek in the Bible, and the Buddha argues about this. And then also non-religious people practice this idea too. Like Sam Harris on one of his podcasts I was watching recently was saying that even if he disagrees with someone, he tries to use the principle of charity or assume that they have good faith, or at least he says that he does. Maybe he intends to, sometimes he doesn't. And I think this idea is interesting and really valuable, of at least trying to befriend your enemy in our current political climate. And a good example of how this can work really well is the documentary Accidental Courtesy with the man Daryl Davis, who's a black musician who has befriended Nazis, white nationalists, and white supremacists since I think about 1990. And through this process of befriending people who literally think he is immoral because he is a black person, because they're so racist, he has slowly converted many of these people, like Nazis, white nationalists, and white supremacists. He's collected about 26 KKK robes, I think he says in the documentary, and these are people who he has converted. And the less people like that there are, the better. So it seems like this kind of mentality works a lot better for convincing people who you disagree with and you think are bad for, especially if you think they're bad for society, like racists and Nazis and white supremacists and white nationalists. So do you really think that yelling and screaming at each other and insulting people and swearing at people and acting like you know everything, which everyone does from time to time, like I do that even though I don't intend to sometimes also, it's because we just have these knee-jerk emotional reactions to people who we disagree with, and then we think their ideas are worthless, and we think they're worthless as people. Now, I think that the way someone acts as a person and what they seem like as a person is sometimes more important than their ideas, and other times their ideas are more important. It depends on what you're talking about. I think in general, the way people are is more important. But if you're talking about someone's ideas, then if you insult their character, then that's basically a straw man argument, and it's like inherently flawed in a way. So what I see often happening in the current political climate, where people are screaming at each other, is that people are, no, wait, that's not a straw man argument. I forget what that's called exactly, but insulting, ad hominem attack, that's what it's called. That people are making ad hominem attacks all over the place. Like a popular one is Trump, for example. I don't like the guy at all. But I think it's interesting that people moralize about people they don't like. So people are all screaming like about how Trump is evil and stuff like that. And I think that's just fucking ridiculous because you can't assume someone's intentions for one thing. And I don't think he's evil. I don't think he literally wants to destroy America or make it a Nazi state, as some of the really extreme left wing conspiracy theories go. I think he's just a fucking incompetent, intellectually lazy asshole. So I really think he actually does want to make America great again. But I think he doesn't know how to do it, and he doesn't care to learn about how is the best way to do it. And he's really selfish, and he's an asshole towards people. But would it be better if he were a competent asshole? I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about in terms of politics, but it seems to me like it would be worse if he were a competent asshole than it is that he's an incompetent asshole, at least in terms of making policy, because he's tried to make some policy decisions like exporting people from Muslim countries and building the infamous wall, but he hasn't been able to do that because, for one thing, I think the main reason is that he's incompetent about how politics works. So, anyway, that's just my opinion. But the whole point of this is the principle of loving your enemy, or the principle of good faith, or assuming that people have good faith, or the principle of charity. And I think, now, don't listen to me. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm in no place to give anyone advice. This is just my opinion. My opinion is that with the way the world currently is and how people are ideological and tribal about the current landscape, especially on social media, on the internet, and especially when people are yelling at each other about particularly politics and religion, probably more than anything else, because people are really ideological and we identify with our particularly political and religious positions because they become a part of ourselves. So I think a better way to go about doing this is assuming that people are acting from good faith. So, for example, another example is the famous or infamous, depending on how you view it, so-called intellectual dark web with people like Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris. Now, it's interesting. I used to like both of those guys in particular, both of those guys' ideas much more than I do now. And I would say, since learning a lot more, I have fundamental disagreements with some of their ideas and with some of their conduct. Like, I don't think the way Sam Harris addresses religion, for example, is very productive for converting fundamentalists, which seems like a big project of his. I think that for him, the idea of loving your enemy would be a much better idea, and he would convince many more people that way. And for Jordan Peterson, I just have a possibly tedious philosophical agreement with him. I don't think he actually really understands postmodernism when he criticizes it. But other than that, I think he has good intentions too. I think he wants to make the world a better place, just like Sam Harris does, which is why, even though some people hate me for this, I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. And I also agree with and like some of their ideas. Like, I like Jordan Peterson's approach. I like his explanation of different religions, especially when he compares different mythologies. I think he's fairly correct about there being problems with extremists in the political landscape. I like Sam Harris's approach to secular spirituality, and so on and so forth. But anyway, those are just my opinions about those particular examples that I'm just thinking of off the top of my head. Anyway, the important point of this is to illustrate that I'm not saying my way is the best way for everyone. I'm saying that the way I prefer and what seems to me like the best way to solve our current world problems, especially where we're disagreeing with each other to the point where we can't even agree to disagree, and we can't make progress on ideas because we're intolerant of people who disagree with us. I think that in general, the best way forward, especially today, the way our current culture is to love your enemy. So, love your enemy, or assume that people have good faith, or practice the principle of charity. All right. Okay, so that's my soapbox speech on the idea of loving your enemy. Maybe I'm too much of a hippie. You can say that. Maybe it's true. But I think that this is a really good idea, even though it's a religious idea and I'm an atheist. So, anyway, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks, Sergio, for saying true, man. That's awesome. Sergio's awesome. And as I always say at the end of my videos, thank you everyone so much for watching. Thanks so much for everyone who's subscribed to my... You're welcome, Sergio. Thanks to everyone who's subscribed to my channel. I really appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who likes this video. And thank you so fucking much to anyone else who subscribes to my channel and anyone else who contributes to me on Patreon. I really fucking appreciate it and means a hell of a lot to me. And as I always say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all. All right. Keep having mindgasms and mindgasming all over the place. And adios until next time.